Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am Madcapper and there's another video on Raid Shadow Legends. For the past 3 years, we have forever been locked in a battle with the Demon Lord. It is arguably the most solid and most fulfilling content in the game. Not only is progression sustained, understood, and the expectation on return rewarding, but it doesn't stop being rewarding once you achieve your final momentum. As long as you're getting top chests as you move through the different levels of Clan Boss, you absolutely feel like you are getting more for what you put in. Unlike most content in this game, this is absolutely top to bottom, well thought out, well constructed. While there were some early issues that included clan hopping, which has been fixed, and it also included the unlimited turn meter, which would result in ungodly numbers that the powers that be above did not like, and the fact that you had to control the amount of damage you did on the clan boss in order to achieve your desired results. Those have been ironed out, and now what you're left with is a clan boss that for 50 turns you can wail out however you want, and I mean wail with anger, not with money, or with money, or both, frankly. And you can do the damage, have fun, and you can continually build new teams. Even if you hit the top chest, there's something so satisfying about building a new comp and watching it fly in this sort of theater. Something that is not present in Arena, especially currently, and certainly even in Doom Tower, it becomes part of the humdrum. One thing I've always enjoyed is knowing that I can always build new comps for the Demon Lord. And this is something that no other area has really given me that same sense of satisfaction. You can tell by the fact that there's a lot of people that put out these sort of videos that I am not the only one. So today, I want to bring you the first time in a long time. For those of you who are old timers of this channel, you know I actually cut my teeth on, so to speak, on the Demon Lord. My first videos were about unkillable comps with Roshkard and Sir Nick. I made those sort of videos and different variations of that for the first several months of my existence, and they were the bread and butter of the start of this channel. And only after we had exhausted that and things like the calculator from Deadwood Jedi came out did I move away from that to other ventures. I still miss it, I still love it, so I thought wouldn't it be great if we revisited with a new couple of comps, variations of one of the more recent comps out there, which is absolutely I love, which is the Myth Fu comp, courtesy of Deadwood Jedi and his channel. It is his favorite comp, the one he uses, and with a little bit of my own flair, we are going to build something similar. But we're not just going to show you Myth Fu, because there's already a great video on that, link in the description below for Deadwood Jedi's website, along with all the different Demytha comps you can run. But I'm going to put a variation on the Myth Fu comp, which is Demytha with Fu Shan. Now, first thing we need to talk about is what makes those two champions so important for the clan boss. Well, first let's take a look at Demytha. The reason why she is so good in the clan boss is because she has an unkillable. And with what we know in the turn meter and how we can manipulate our own turn meters on our team with 5 champions to continually leapfrog the clan boss from going till eventually the clan boss goes, it allows us to run up to 3-to-1 comps. Well, if she has a block damage for 1 turn, and you can get her taking 3 turns to the clan boss's 1 turn, and with cooldowns, this thing has a 3-turn cooldown, guess what? You can always have a block damage. Why is that important? Well, if you can't figure that out, maybe it's time to move away. But that is how, so you take 0 damage no matter what, and it's absolutely amazing. How does that work? Well, that has to do with her A2. On the same champion, which makes this so incredibly impressive, on the same champion, you have an increased duration of all ally buffs by 1 turn, also on a 3-turn cooldown. This is huge for both priority setting and, of course, being able to keep the speed buff, which is one of the key factors of this working, keeping that speed buff out throughout so you can maintain speeds to be able to continue to leapfrog that boss. Demytha makes that happen. Her A1 also puts up a shield. That's not the big deal here. It is those 2 skills. Along with that, let's talk about Fu Shan. Why is Fu Shan so important? Well, Fu Shan, first of all, brings a decreased defense along with a ton of damage. That's great because you don't necessarily have that decreased defense on all nukers. But more importantly, arguably, is his speed aura. He has an all-battle 24% speed aura, which allows you to lower the requirements of the artifact speed or their displayed speed to more reasonable numbers, because their true speed, which is their display speed times the aura, allows them to add more to things like crit damage, crit rate, and those sort of things, accuracy for the champions that need it, so that everyone has lower gear requirements to be able to do this comp, which is amazing. But I don't want to go there because that would be easy, and that's already a video that's out there. So what do I want to do? Well, I want to make 2 new videos. I want to make 2 comps that are a variation of this very comp that we're about to talk about. But instead of Fu Shan, I'm going to give you the Myth Lord, which is with Lord Shazar, and the Myth Wolf, which is with Brachus. So without further ado, let's jump into the clan boss, and I'll show you those comps. What I will immediately tell you is that some of the gear requirements are not for the faint of heart. I will also tell you that if you have a fully booked Fu Shan that you're not using in any particular other dungeon comp, and you have a Demytha, go with that. Whatever your other damage dealer is, go with Fu Shan and go with Demytha together. That 24% speed aura is huge. Some of these comps, some of these speed requirements are vast. And while I don't doubt maybe you have that gear, I did, you are having to make sacrifices to min-max your damage. So let's show this one. This is not the one I'm going to use on this particular boss, though at the end of this video I will play you the Lord Shazar comp. We'll run it up against, we might just do both keys against the against Blue Affinity, but he's really best against Force Affinity, because not only does the Force Affinity stun our usually our Draco, though unexpectedly sometimes our Seeker. Either is okay. That's where he really shines on damage. But he will also do okay here. The only problem is because he's weak hitting against the against Magic Affinity, it's not maximizing his potential damage. But that damage will be more than easily taken up by our good friend Draco. So let's show this team, and I'll show you the other variation. You can see the other variation, that's with Brachus. But the reason why we need Brachus, I'll talk about in a minute. So let's show you each of these. Draco, he's at 192, 250 crit damage, 102 crit rate at 5460 attack, 249 accuracy. This speed is very particular, especially for Spirit Affinity. I will tell you right now, whether or not you go with Myth Fu or one of the other Myth and Nuker combos, the speeds between this champion and your Seeker is incredibly important, and it's a little bit convoluted. But check it out on the website, and it'll try to explain it to you as best it can. What it is Heiress needs to be higher than 282.9 true speed, and your DPS must be less than Seeker's true speed times 7.15 divided by 7.8. That number, which is 0.916 repeat, is the difference between a fail and a success about halfway through a Spirit Affinity run. It's because if Seeker receives the debuff, the speed debuff, but one of the others doesn't, one of the nukers doesn't, there can be a switch of turn order which breaks everything. It's a rare happenstance, but it can happen, and so the best way to stop that is that math. Again, look at the math on it. Gives you examples of how to do it on Deadwood Jedi's website for Myth Fu. Again, the Myth Fu basic guide. By the way, something I didn't mention, this is good for Nightmare, Ultra Nightmare, and Brutal, so you can use the exact same speeds and everything in auto. So we start with Draco as our lead. I have him Baleful Eye going first, to be perfectly honest. That does not matter on him. He could go Poison Jaws first if he likes. Lord Shazar, I have him not using his A2, which can be okay, but because Seeker's giving you the increased attack and the block buffs really isn't needed, this is just an extra thing. It grants an extra turn. This will throw your comp out of order, if you use this in the first 5 turns. So if you just want to try Everlasting Fury and see if it helps your damage at all, you can use it, go manual for 5 turns, not using this, and after 5 turns you can use it. It'll even show you in the calculator where it breaks it until you do a 5-turn delay, and then everything will sync properly. Basically, you can't use this until everything has gotten into sync, and then the extra turn no longer breaks it. That's all that you need to know about that. And you don't use Cruel Fate, though I do believe he actually ignores this on bosses anyway, but it's not something needed. You want this Damnation, and why Lord Shazar is so good is not only does he attack the enemy 3 times, but it increases by 15% for each debuff on the target, and it's a Giant Slayer because he's hitting 3 times every turn. The next up, and his speeds, I should probably tell you that. His speed is 212. It can be as low as 210, I believe. My brackets has that speed, but we're using it at 212 here. His crit rate, unfortunately, I don't have fully crit capped. I'm waiting for some speed glyphs. I just need some single speed glyphs. I tried to get them yesterday. Ran all my keys on level 3, I think, the last one that you can get singles. Didn't get a single speed glyph, hashtag fixed. So as soon as I can get those speed glyphs, I'll be able to switch the one piece of gear out to make this 100% properly. And that's actually the same for Seeker, by the way. I have 2 champions that are waiting for speed glyphs, so I need 4 single speed glyphs that apparently I can't get. So let's talk about Lord Shazar. Other than that, fully crit damage, just maximizes attack and crit damage is what you want to do, and get that speed to a minimum of 210. Seeker 209, again crit cap him, 4163 attack. Doesn't need accuracy. This is the first one that you need to absolutely use that Devour first, so that he uses Tailwind on a 1-turn delay. That's how you build it. Now for the 2 important ones. First one, Demytha. Demytha, you want her to have a 1-turn delay on her A2, but you also have to tell the AI to use A2, or it will not use it if people aren't injured. It's a typical heal issue with any heal spell, or sometimes heal spells. I don't know. It seems to be inconsistent. But if you tell her to use Channel the Bloodline, which is the block damage on turn 1, and then on her second turn to use this, and you prioritize them, and you're fully booked, everything will work fine for her. The speed is the crazy part, which is why her crit rate's sitting at 83. I suspect now that I've moved away from my Bat Eater, I might have a few pieces I can pilfer off the Bat Eater comp to make this work. But 315 speed is very difficult to do and still max out damage. So you see the numbers here. I'd love to be higher, and we'll work on that, but not 100% necessarily per se. And then finally, Heiress, which is the other high speed requirement. She's at 284. This is why Fu Shan works so well, because both of those speeds are like 292 and 261. Much easier numbers to get to, which makes it an overall easier build, right? But nonetheless, this works. I do have her crit cap because she is taking extra hits, but that crit damage, I'd really like to push that up, and her attack if we can do it. She is a rare champion, so it can be a bit painful. How this all works is she is the linchpin. Obviously, the Seeker is the boost in turn meter. We all remember that from the Bat Eater combo if you have it. Demytha, we already talked about the extending, but what is she extending that's so important? And that's Exhortation, which is an increased speed for 2 turns, and we want to extend that to 3 turns because we do have champions that are going to be going on a 3-to-1. So they need to have that increased speed on them for all 3 of their turns to ensure that she can replace it, and you can have that increased speed all the time. If that increased speed is lost, then that's a problem. You don't actually get it. She removes a random debuff from all allies, which isn't important. It is important. That is what removes the Spirit Affinity. All debuffs, obviously, you don't want the decreased accuracy or the decreased attack because that's just going to lower your damage. And this 100% to have the increased speed when she's fully booked is what makes the wheel go round. So she's a cleanse with the increased speed. The only other champion that can be used is Tahanarok, who has also she has the Doom Priest-like cleanse, and she has an increased speed. Doom Priest cannot be used, no increased speed. I still have to look into whether you can use Salad in this combo with Doom Priest in some form, but that'll be a later video if I ever figure that out. So there is the team. We are going to run this team here, and then I will show you. I'll probably run this team first now that I think about it with Lord Shazar, and then we'll actually go back and I'll show you with Brachus. Now, I'll show you the gear just before we run the comp on these champions. I know this is a long video, but it is what it is. It's a clan boss video. So what we were looking for is proper speeds, cruel gear for extra damage on our nukers, savage gear if we can. If not savage, we want at least crit damage gear to cap. And you can see here in this particular case, I was able to get the speeds without speed gear, but I didn't have 6 pieces of cruel gear, so we went 4 cruel and 2 crit damage. A reminder that I had forgotten, but thankfully was reminded by Deadwood Jedi, is that you don't need savage gear because the clan boss, their defense is pretty low. So you're not optimizing the build with just savage gear because it's only bringing savage and it's ignoring more defense, so it's diminishing returns. You're better off using the savage gear, which gives you that 15% extra attack to do more damage and just have the 5% ignore defense for the most optimal builds. So this is our Brachus here. You can see he's at 211 as well. He's crit capped at 271 damage 5319 attack. Masteries. I've been humming and hawing on this as to what's important. So here's the deal. People get stunned. So because people get stunned, deterrence might be worthwhile. But because I'm trying to get that multi-hit Giant Slayer on him, I didn't want to also lose this, which is giving him extra damage on his default skill, which is the only thing well, in this case, he's using all 3 of his skills. So either I had to somehow skip both of these to take deterrence, but usually he's actually the stun target, so it really didn't matter. So you could argue go Lore of Steel on this champion to help you with your numbers a little bit, especially the speeds. In this particular case, I would have gotten a little bit of extra, I believe you get extra attack out of Lore, but nothing else here is that important. Honestly, because it's a block damage, it's mainly about this. You could probably just ignore the defense tree if you wanted to. I don't see anything here that's particularly important. But you do want the increased 5% when attacking with full HP, and you do want the methodical, and you do absolutely want bring it down, and of course on this champion, Giant Slayer. Also, by the way, Fu Shan, same setup, and as you will see in a second here, we'll go to our Lord Shazar here. Did I say Shazar last time? Fu Shan if I didn't. You see here again, same thing with the Giant Slayer. Let me know in the comments down below, how do you build out, maybe a link to Imager or something, how do you build out your masteries for your nuker if you were using this with your Turvold or your Fu Shan, just to see if there's other options. I think the biggest thing I've heard is that going for that Lore of Steel to make the requirements a little easier is never a bad idea. But at the end of the day, I was able to do it without, so you can see very similar here. And the Lord Shazar, a little bit off, obviously that 2%. And then you've got the 212 speed again, 5195, a little less damage. He does have accuracy. It's not intentional. It just so happens that he's getting accuracy. And you can see here, in order to get his speed as well, I did have to give him a speed set. That's something I'll be slowly working on getting him out of. But we went with 1 cruel, 1 crit damage, 1 speed set to get these numbers. Finally, on the nuker side, we have Draco, who is in all versions of mine. I have 2 Dracos, so it was nice to build him out without having to pull my main Draco out of my Bat Eater, until I knew that I was 100% solid in all affinities. You see here again, 1 savage, 1 cruel. I keep saying savage. 1 cruel, 1 crit damage, and 1 speed set to get the numbers. But we got good numbers that we had. He's crit capped, and his speed at 192 works really well. And then we've shown Demytha. Demytha is 100% speed set. Be hard pressed to do this. Now, the one change, if you're doing the Myth Fu, the recommendation that I have received and understand, we'll do Seeker before we talk about her. But Seeker, again, you see very similar just based on the gear I had to get the gear requirements. And we want to crit cap them as soon as we can. I have, like I said, I'm just waiting on those glyphs. I have an unglyph speed right there that we're going to try. And hopefully we'll get a speed glyph soon so we can just crit cap them out and not have to worry about it. And then finally, Heiress. Heiress I have a full speed set. With the lowered Fu Shan requirements, you can probably build her out in Toxic, which will just improve your damage immensely. She's getting an extra hit every round, along with her own hit, as well as the cleanse. So, and that own hit comes from here. Counterattacks counterattacks the attack when an ally is attacked, and then attacks one enemy, grants extra turn if the target's killed. That's not important in this particular case. And of course, again, she's doing that cleanse plus 1 buff cleanse plus the increased speed. Her aura, unfortunately, is in dungeon, so it doesn't come into play here. One thing to note, and I think I already said this, but in case I didn't, Heiress cannot be stunned. Demytha cannot be stunned. That is just a must never happen. It will break the whole system. Especially, Demytha can actually get stunned except for the first stun. The first round, turn 2, has to be one of your nukers or seeker, just because of how the turn orders work. So there's the gear, there's the champions, there's the masteries. All the masteries and all these champions are the same. Now it's time to do the run, and we're just going to start it in auto. I'm going to disappear, and we'll talk about it on the other side. So let me disappear, and let's hit start. Well, there we have it. Let me try to move my head around so you can see all the numbers here. Easy one key, both opportunities. This one with Brackus, the first one with Lord Shazar. The only caveat you need to know here is that Heiress can't take the stun. If I remember correctly, Tahanarok is passive, so it doesn't matter if she takes the stun, which makes it even easier because then the only one you have to worry about is Demytha, and it's very hard for her to take a stun on turn 2. After that, it doesn't matter. So if you have Tahanarok, you can pair any 2 nukers you want. Conceivably, now I want to pull her to try that out, to test it out. Fu Shan's still the cream of the crop because of his aura. Makes things a lot easier, but I tell you, there are other auras out there. And if I had a Tahanarok, I would definitely give them a try and see what we can do, come up with for different damages and different... This opens up a lot of opportunities, I think, for the general player base. And this is what I like about this one over the dual Maneater. First off, you have 2 nukers, you have 2 damage dealers, which gives you a greater breadth of opportunity. It makes it easier. I know that the gear requirements may be a little bit harder, especially if you're not going with Fu Shan, but at the same time, because you have 2 nukers, like we did 90, both of them hit over 90 million damage on this. You can tell I haven't even min-maxed all of them, so you can imagine that the opportunities are just that much more. If you're not going with poison dealers, you can put Heiress in a toxic set. A little bit more difficult at that 284 speed, but not impossible to do a 4-piece toxic and a 2-piece speed set. I think it is possible to do if you wanted to go with 2 non-poisoner nukers, but there's just so many different ones. Obviously, I'm using 2 legendary champions. You don't necessarily need legendary champions. Just look for damage dealing champions and see what you can do. I'm going to play around with it a lot, see what kind of damages I can get out of different. But because I have Heiress, I have to, on Spirit Affinity, I have to protect her with another Force Affinity champion. In this case, Brackus just makes it easy. But when it's not Spirit Affinity, so Heiress is not weak affinity, conceivably, I don't see there being... the 2 nukers conceivably could be anything, and we're going to try that out, test different ones. Like I said at the beginning of the program, Fu Shan and Turvold seem to be the best damage I've seen in that 132 million. Yes, this isn't a 1 billion, this isn't the affinity comp, but what I will say is this is probably easier to build than the affinity comp, so it's something you can look at. Also, though I don't believe this particular iteration, with some changes, you can actually use Ninja. And Ninja puts up some ridiculous damage in Demytha comp. So there it is. There's my new... This is what I'm using on the clan boss now. One of the things I did, because of the Guardian faction rings, I actually had my first 2 key on Force Affinity not that long ago, about 3 weeks ago, with the double Maneater. Because of the increased defense, increased health, it was taking longer to get to the point where I was getting counterattacks, and just pure RNG on top of that, I only did 70 point, like I missed it by like 10,000 or 100,000. I did 70 million and you need like 70.2. So it can happen. This makes me feel a lot better. Force Affinity, I'm doing in the high 80s. Spirit Affinity, I think we did 87 on stream. And then of course 90, not in the 90 millions for Magic Affinity, so we're not even close. RNG can't mess it up here. You see Brackus does good damage. You saw that Fu Shan, Lord Shazar, I really want to get Lord Shazar going on Force Affinity and Spirit Affinity because he can do more damage that way, but I just have to make sure about stun targeting. So Spirit Affinity is of course the worst because then Heiress will be the target if I don't have another Force Affinity champion. Force Affinity, typically I still bring in Draco because Draco can still do good damage. The only problem with the Spirit Affinity the Force Affinity with Draco is he does miss sometimes, and you want a full 10. You want a full 10 debuffs for Lord Shazar to get his full damage. So just little things to think about. Pure affinity friendly, pure brutal Nightmare and Ultra Nightmare friendly, and overall a really fun comp to do. So I hope you enjoyed this little showcase, a little something different than what we normally do on this channel. And you know, have fun with it, play around with the Clan Boss calculator, see what you can come up with. Let me know if you were using this, what is your best result and what champions do you use? I'll be excited to hear it, both for this comp, for Demytha comps, or even for your own comps. Maybe you're using the Infinity comp or a comp that we don't normally talk about. I'd love to hear them all, so let me know in the comments down below. But in the meantime, as always, I want to thank you for joining me today. Please be kind, be safe, and we'll see you in the next video.